The child's body felt too light in Lee's arms. That was the first thing Lee noticed as he helped Lee lay the boy on the floor. Children were supposed to be full of energy, full of movement. This child felt like a leaf pulled from a tree too early. The mother's crying filled the small house, sharp and broken. She clutched her hands together, speaking fast in Chinese, her voice shaking. Lee did not understand the words, but he understood the fear. Fear sounded the same everywhere. Lee moved quickly. He checked the child's breathing, then his pulse. His face stayed calm, but his eyes were sharp and focused. He placed 2 fingers on the child's neck, then pressed gently on the chest. The child coughed weakly. Lee looked at Lee. The look was clear. This was not a lesson to watch. This was a moment to act. Lee stepped closer. His hands trembled for half a second, then steadied. He remembered what Lee had taught him. Observe first, panic later. The child's skin felt hot, fever. His breathing was shallow, uneven. Lee spoke short, quick instructions in Chinese, pointing to the shelves. Lee moved immediately. He grabbed dried leaves he recognized, then a small jar containing ground root. His body moved faster than his thoughts. Lee boiled water. Lee crushed the leaves. They worked without words. The bitter smell filled the room. Lee mixed the herbs carefully, then helped the child drink a small amount. Most of it spilled from the child's mouth, but some went down. Lee nodded once. Then he wrapped a cool compress and placed it on the child's forehead. The mother watched every movement, barely breathing herself. Minutes passed. The child's breathing slowed. His chest rose more evenly. The crying in the room softened into quiet sobs. Lee exhaled slowly. The danger was not gone, but it had stepped back. Lee spoke to the mother firmly, giving instructions. She nodded again and again, wiping her tears, holding her child close. When she finally left, carrying the boy carefully, the house fell into silence. Lee stood still. His heart was still racing. Lee looked at him for a long moment. Then Lee did something rare. He smiled just slightly. That night, Lee did not sleep easily. Every sound outside made him sit up. Every memory of the child's weak breathing replayed in his mind. Saving one life felt heavy enough. Saving a child felt heavier. Morning came quietly, but the village did not. Before the sun fully rose, footsteps approached the house. Voices followed, not shouting, but talking, curious, expectant. Lee opened the door. A man stood there, holding his wrist, swollen, red, pain written clearly on his face. Behind him stood another person, then another. Lee's stomach tightened. This was happening. Lee listened calmly, then nodded. He let the man inside. Lee helped prepare herbs for inflammation. The man sighed with relief when the paste cooled his skin. Then another person entered. Then another. A woman with insect bites on her arm. An elderly farmer with stiff knees that refused to bend. A young girl rubbing her eyes, red and swollen from allergies. Lee worked beside Lee, quietly, steadily. He crushed leaves. He boiled roots. He wrapped cloths. The house filled with people and the smell of medicine. Word spread fast in the countryside. By midday, people were waiting outside. Some stood silently. Some whispered. Some stared at Lee with curiosity mixed with disbelief. The foreign boy, the healer. Lee felt their eyes on him like weight on his shoulders. Lee did not rush. He treated each person with the same patience, the same care. Lee learned something important that day. Healing was not about speed. It was about accuracy. If someone complained loudly, it did not always mean they were the most sick. If someone stayed silent, it did not mean they were strong. Pain hid itself in many ways. Over the next weeks, Lee's life changed. He still trained every morning. Karate never stopped. Discipline never paused. But now, healing filled the rest of his days. Lee treated insect bites with cool compresses and crushed leaves. He helped elderly villagers with joint pain using warm compresses and ginger mixtures. He cleaned wounds carefully and wrapped them properly. He helped calm stomach pain with chamomile tea and gentle pressure. Lee watched closely. Sometimes he corrected Lee. Sometimes he let Lee make small mistakes, safe mistakes, so he could learn. The villagers began to trust Lee's hands. Not fully, but enough. Children stopped staring and started waving. Old men nodded when Lee passed. Women whispered his name, not loudly, but often. Lee remained quiet. He did not let pride grow inside him. Lee had warned him. Without words, pride makes healing dangerous. One afternoon, a man arrived from a nearby farm, limping badly. His knee was swollen and stiff. He could barely walk. Lee examined him, then motioned for Lee to help. Lee prepared a warm mixture, applied pressure carefully, and wrapped the joint firmly. The man tested his legs slowly. His face changed. Hope replaced pain. He bowed slightly to Lee, then looked at Lee with something close to gratitude. Lee felt it again. That strange feeling, belonging. But not everyone felt grateful. Some villagers watched from a distance, arms crossed, faces tight. Whispers followed Lee when he walked alone. He is not from here. He uses strange methods. He is too young. Lee heard none of the words, but he felt the energy. Lee noticed. That evening, Lee stopped Lee before training. He pointed to Lee's chest, then to the village, then shook his head slowly. Lee understood. Not everyone will accept you, and that is dangerous. Days later, a farmer collapsed near the fields from exhaustion and dehydration. Lee helped him drink water and rest in the shade until his strength returned. Another day, a woman burned her hand while cooking. Lee cooled it immediately and treated it with aloe and herbs. Each incident added to Lee's reputation. And with reputation came attention. One evening, Lee noticed something new. Strangers, not villagers. Two men stood at the edge of the road, watching the house. Their clothes were dusty, their eyes sharp. They did not enter. They only observed. Lee's stomach tightened. Lee noticed them too. He said nothing. That night, Lee could not sleep. He listened. The countryside was quiet, but something felt different, like the calm before a storm. The next morning, more strangers arrived. Not sick, not injured, just standing, watching. One of them spoke briefly to a villager, then pointed toward Lee's house. The villager's face changed. Lee felt a chill move through him. Lee continued his work calmly, but Lee saw the tension in his movements. Small things, shorter pauses, sharper glances toward the door. By afternoon, a small group gathered outside, not asking for help, waiting. Lee stood beside Lee, his body alert. He did not know what they wanted, but he knew this. Healing had made him visible, and visibility always came with risk. As the sun began to lower, footsteps approached again. This time, they were not rushed. They were deliberate. Lee turned toward the door. Lee's heart pounded, because something told him these were not people seeking help. These were people seeking answers. And answers often demanded a price. Strangers from another village arrive looking for him. If this story inspired you, watch the next episode's stories. Like, comment, and subscribe.